just for the layman, how do you defuse a bomb?
If we get called to a job, it's a bomb till we determine it's not. For whatever reason, he got things rolling, and he'd been wearing a suicide vest, and he had buttons on each shoulder and a button on his chest. And that was if the police should arrest him, he could just use his head to push one of the buttons or push the button on his chest and things would go off.
I think you saw the consequences of someone wearing a bomb suit where the bomb went off.
Every metre matters. If you could be a further metre away, that could be the difference between your life or serious injuries.
Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with former Tactical Police Officer John Taylor. In part 1, we covered shootings, sieges, and the high-risk situations Special Operations officers confront. Now add bomb disposal to that list, because in part 2, John tells me what it's like to put on a 40-kilogram bomb suit and walk up to a suspicious package, knowing if you make a mistake, it will literally be the last mistake you ever make. John also talks about what he does to relax away from work, which includes climbing Mount Everest. That sounds relaxing. Running boot camps for professional sportsmen. He does all sorts of things. Have a listen to what John Taylor has to say. He has lived a life of adventure. Welcome back to part 2 of I Catch Killers.
Thanks very much.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed part 1, hearing stories of tactical policing and all the things that you've done, and that was really just scratching the surface of some of the things you've done. But I think it gave listeners a sense of what that type of work involves. We're going to talk about then you going into the world of the bomb response unit and how you got into that. But before we do, and I think it'll save us getting into trouble or get you in the good books anyway, I think one of the things you're most proud of in what you've done through your life is the fact that you've kept your family together, you've raised raised the kids, happily married, and in the world that you operated, that doesn't always play out.
Yeah, that's correct. I've had my wife's been very good, probably very patient in a way, considering one year I missed her 16th, 18th and 21st birthday.
Oh, you did the big 3.
I missed the big 3. That goes with work. One was a personal challenge too, but that's just the way it happened. But, we missed a lot of functions and things like, she went to a lot of functions by herself. I wasn't around, and that was just par for the course. In the early days, very hard on the family life. No mobile phones and things like that. Senior sergeant would ring Jan and just say, he probably won't be home for a week. He's got out to do a task. And that was it, and she always trusted the guys, the boys, the bosses and stuff like that. Had no qualms with that. But Dad was a fireman for a lot of years, so she sort of understood the shift work. Yeah, which helped,
But, you need that to be able to do the things that you've done. You need that type of support. And I'm sure that having that stability and knowing that the home is safe, that your wife is looking after things there, make it easier for you to concentrate on doing what you're doing.
Yeah. She ran the household really when it comes down to it. It would have been hard. She's self-employed. She was a podiatrist. So basically, even starting off, she'd get home visits. So, have all the equipment and probably a baby in tow in a capsule. And, she worked hard. Yeah.
While you're off flying around in helicopters and
getting paid to do this stuff
and living the boy's own adventure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about defusing bombs now. It's a very specialist field of policing. There's only a small number of people that do it, and I suggest that there's only a small number of people that want to do it, and then you've got to have the aptitude for it. What drew you into becoming a member of the bomb response unit?
Well, so you get into the SOG, you're all tactical members. Everybody's a tactical member. Everybody does house raids and what we've discussed before.
Yeah.
And then you can start going to specialist fields like some can be a sniper. Some can be a bomb tech, depending what comes up. And it was 1990, so I hadn't been in the group that long. And I had shown an interest, been to a few scenes where I've helped get the equipment out, but not involved. And a course was coming up, and they asked, "Oh, you want to become a bomb tech also?
Yeah.
Do that kind of field." So I was going to remain tactical, but it was just an extra skill. And so in 1990, I headed off to a place called Bandiana, which is on the border of Victoria and New South Wales. It's an army base, and basically started my course there, a 4-week course, which was run by police jurisdictions throughout Australia.
Mm.
So they had 2 police officers from each state and territory there, and we're using a military base. So we had some of their instructors, plus we also had previous bomb techs, experienced bomb techs from various states who would be a director, assistant director, and instructors and things like that. So you do your 4-week course there to start your bomb, and like 4-week course is not long. It's an apprenticeship.
It would be a course that I'd be paying particular attention to. I'd be
Yeah,
concentrating during that.
you don't want to miss any lessons.
No.
That's for sure. And it's pass fail. In the early days, there's nothing about competencies and resitting things, as you know.
Yeah.
It was you either passed or you failed, and the pressure. I just got into the group, only been in the group probably a year, and imagine going back to first Victorian to fail a bomb course. When it came down to it.
Carry that.
Yeah.
Well, it might got rid of your name as Kelvin. You might have
Kelvin.
might have got rid of that. But to want to do that work, like that's we talk the pressure of being in the tactical teams, the SOG, and responding to incidents. But I think I'm just looking at there's another level of pressure when there's a package over there, and it happens so many times in police, and I don't think people fully appreciate how much effort and things have to be done when there's a suspicious package. So you're putting your hand up to be the person that walks in and determines whether that's going to blow you up. If you make a mistake in this line of work, it's the last mistake you make. Literally.
It is. And I had a good mate, senior sergeant, and basically we used to say every metre matters. So if you could be a further metre away, that could be the difference between your life or serious injury. So, you're trained basically to assess the situation with the equipment you had. In the early days, if you had a suspicious bag, you'd walk up with your X-ray equipment. You'd take an X-ray of it, and like the X-ray equipment in those days wasn't great. And like, oh, geez, it is a bomb. Now I'll go and put the bomb suit on. Yeah. So we've changed now that over the 15 years ago, we decided like if we get called to a job, it's a bomb till we determine it's not. Yeah. So it's full equipment, full bomb suit if required. And use everything before we actually try and put a member over the top of it. And robots have got better these days, so it makes your job a lot easier. It just depends the location where it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of aptitude do you feel that you need to be a bomb technician?
I think stick to the procedures that you've been taught. Yep. There's no shortcuts, and I've failed people on courses who've done the wrong thing. Yep. I've had one guy removed from our unit that made a bad mistake, yep. And he's lucky. He was lucky. Basically, nothing happened, but he made a bad decision. And as the upgraded senior sergeant at that time, I thought, advise this person, I think it's just time that you move to another location. Yeah. And he understood the consequences, so... Yeah. I don't want to be going to someone's family and saying, "Oh, you made a mistake." With training now and all the equipment, you don't take a risk. You don't. Maybe this will happen. No, you know what's going to happen. And if you're going to go up there and cut the red wire or whatever, that's going to disarm it. That's not the way to go. There's other ways of dealing with it that you've been able to.
Hold it. This could be break. Are you telling us all those Hollywood films, do we cut the red or the blue wire, is bullshit?
Only on Fridays. Fridays.
If you want to knock off because you got to get out, let's just cut.
And just hope they're not colourblind or something like that. Yeah.
But the skill set. So a 4-week course, and I take on board each metre matters. That's logical in its process. The way that you shifted the assessment of the situation, it's a bomb until you can prove otherwise. That all makes sense, but it gets down to the point where you've got to approach it at some stage.
no matter what, some stage you have to approach it and declare it safe.
Yeah.
And like we run our own course now in Victoria.
Mm.
Things change within the government, and basically every state and territory was to deal with their own bomb techs and train their own bomb techs. Our course is now 5 weeks long, and it's
Yep.
only an initial course, really. The first week is actually getting your explosives license. Where
Yep.
originally you didn't have to have a license, so under the work safe and all that. We had permission, really good work safe, that we could run our own explosives course and give people their explosives licenses.
Yep.
Even as a bomb tech, if you're driving around with explosives, you've got to have a license to do that. So everything's done within legislation and things like that. So, yeah, it's just important that the first week's a good understanding of the effect of an explosive blast. Then you start putting fragmentation and all that kind of stuff to have a good understanding.
Well, I think that's probably a good idea, because if it's not a firecracker going off invariably, it can be devastating, and so they give you an appreciation of that, probably to wake you up to make sure you're concentrating in what you're being taught.
Yeah, well, when I did my course, we had gelignite.
Yeah, yeah,
Basically, they don't have gelignite these days,
yeah,
which is really nitro. It's based basically, so hence it did the heat shock and friction.
yeah,
It has like even a residue on it. If you get it on your hands, you sort of scrape your forehead, you'll come down with a terrible migraine. So it
yeah,
gets into the pores of your skin. And basically, when you get gelignite for the first time, you've got to poke a hole in it, and poke another hole in it, and put a detonator in it, and make sure you don't hit the little steel clip on the top and create friction and stuff like that. It was a different kind of level of, yeah, you were nervous doing it, but it was exciting in a way.
how,
If you like
how
fireworks, explosives are a lot better.
Right. Okay. Look, it's a bigger bang. That's exciting.
Yeah.
How, like, you've got to be calm in that. Is that something you had, or something that you trained yourself for? Because
Yeah.
you really need to be focused, calm, making informed, correct decisions.
Informed, correct decisions.
Yeah.
So, as a sergeant, you'd come up with a plan, how you're going to deal with a situation. And my bomb techs, the bomb techs I had, when we're dressing them, I would have put a plan together. This is what you're going to do. Bang, 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 bang. A, B,
Yeah.
C, D, right through. Unless they can think for themselves, when they get out there, it's changed the environment or whatever. But whilst we're dressing them, we're putting their overall pants on, and then we're putting their groin protection on them. They're thinking about the tasks they have to do.
Yeah.
Then we put the helmet on, and then we put the big coat on. We put gloves on, so DNA fingerprints. We don't contaminate what we're dealing with. And then I'll say to him before I drop that visor, "What are you going to do?" And he'll go through the whole process of what he's going to do. And then he's in like maybe a 40-kilo bomb suit with that big helmet on,
Yeah.
and he might have to carry a few sandbags, a 20-kilo sandbag in each hand. So they had to be extremely fit, to actually do that and think of what they have to do when they get up there.
Yeah. What? How did you feel the first time you put on that bomb suit? Because I know if you're wearing like a gas mask, you're sort of focused, you're contained, and all that. And I've seen blokes putting on the bomb suit, and I'm thinking, okay, you're part of a team, everyone's with you at this stage, but once
Yeah,
that visor goes down, you are very much on your
yeah. You
own.
just you wipe your hands and yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
We're with you, John. We're just stand
Yeah,
back
we're with
here.
you
Good luck, mate.
back there.
Yeah.
Well, the visor, you start perspiring. Basically, if the breather unit or the blower unit's not working properly, your
Yeah.
visor will start to fog up. And so you have all these things. And when you're walking up for the first time, it may seem silly. It's just out of habit. I used to fold my fingers up, into the
Yeah.
sleeve. As I'm walking up, I just pull my fingers in. I don't know why. It was just a habit. Have a look, don't lose the pinkies or whatever, and
Uh,
go from there. Never concerned. If it was a thought that it was going to go off, I wouldn't be walking up.
yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And if I was going to make a move, I have comms with the other guys
Yeah.
back, even though I may be a sergeant or acting senior sergeant at the time. I'd come up with a plan and say, guys, can we do this better than what I've just come up with? And sometimes they'd come up with another plan, which I hadn't even thought of,
Yeah.
and we'd go down that direction. That's the type of person we look for, whether it doesn't matter what rank you're a team, you're looking after each other, and someone comes up and says, "Oh, could we do it this way?" And go, "Oh, why didn't I think of that?" Yeah, it
Per-
makes sense. It goes from
Perfect
there.
idea. Without giving away any methodology, just for the layman, how do you defuse a bomb when there's a bomb there? What's the processes to
Well,
defuse it?
With the robots, basically, it just makes common sense these days that when you get to a location, you're not going to walk up and have a look. You can be sure that the police that arrived on site probably had a look. So we do questioning first, then we'll send a robot up. The robot can go up and have a look, and sometimes with the attachments on a robot, the actual robot can actually open it for ourselves, and we can have a good look at what we're dealing with. If not, we can use diagnostics equipment, X-ray equipment, and we're all fairly experienced in reading what X-rays are and what we're looking for. I won't go through the various
Yeah,
components, but what we're looking for. And sometimes we can say, no, it's not a device; it's just a mistake. Someone's done a delivery of whatever.
yeah,
But if we're really concerned about it, we won't be going up there to cut it open, or basically we'll use what we call a disruptor, which is like a counter charge. We'll get rid
yeah.
of it that way. And
Okay.
then the detectives can gather all the evidence. Forensic arson squad will gather all the evidence that's remaining.
The world of bombs, just by the nature of them too. Like you can walk up there, and you're saying you wouldn't walk up there if you thought there was concerns. But there's so many devious ways bombs can be activated, and what bombs are used for. And we just look at today's day and age. It doesn't surprise when bombs go off left, right, and centre, and it can be such a powerful tool. It's constantly evolving. I would imagine, you'd be learning things from, something that's happened overseas. You take on board, okay, this situation happened. We've got to look out for that now.
Yeah, we liaison with groups overseas and certainly interstate. We do case histories and things like that.
Yeah,
How they approached a particular device. It's always getting that information. A lot on the internet. A lot of the stories are on the internet. We read
yeah,
what's happened overseas. It's there's a lot of mistakes that are made overseas too. I'm sure there's
yeah.
mistakes made in Australia, but you just can't afford to make that mistake. Yeah.
No, well, you saw. I think you saw the consequences of someone wearing a bomb suit where the bomb went off, and it wasn't too pretty.
No, it wasn't. It was probably it would be probably one of the largest bombs, not the bomb suit side of it, but that's ever gone off in Australia that
Mm,
probably no one heard about. There's a township in Victoria called Derrinallum, and we had a person called Glenn Sanders, and
yeah,
he had mental health issues again, drug affected, probably been on the marijuana, and now he's on ice, very paranoid,
yeah,
and well, for whatever reason, he got things rolling, and he'd been wearing a suicide vest, explosive vest, probably for a year that some people knew about and thought it was just a joke. Don't worry about it; it's not
yeah,
real. Anyway, he had a property at Duran and his property is 100 acres on the Hamilton Highway. He leased another 80 acres on the other side of the highway. And he was visiting his mum in Ballarat Hospital. And prior to that, the day before, he'd had someone come over to his farm and help him in the mechanic's shed. And he had an inspection pit where you get under the vehicle and you can have a look what's going on
yeah,
underneath. And he had this plumber friend come over and he said, I had to get out and get some tools. So he got out and he closed the gate on the inspection pit and then got a hold of the gas bottles, LPG gas bottles, and opened it up. And the guy couldn't get out. And he just left him, walked away and left him. Anyway, his plumber mate took about half an hour to get out, and he got out and then confronted Glenn, what's going on? And Glenn showed him this vest he was wearing and sort of brushed him down and said, sorry about all that. So it sort of triggered
whoa, yeah,
I think, to get the police involved.
yeah,
Anyway, by then the investigators were notified, and then the next day we were notified and we're on our way. And he had gone to Ballarat Hospital where his mum was in hospital. She had cancer at the time, so he's visiting. So we have this person now walking around in Ballarat Hospital with an explosive suicide vest, possible explosive suicide vest on. So naturally, the SOG there coming out formulating a plan. I've got the bomb side of it. I've got the robots ready. They're in the truck. We haven't got them out. We haven't been compromised or anything like that. I've got the suit laying out on the floor of one of the trucks, ready to put someone on. What are the SOG going to do? They investigated it, and this was not unusual for his normal habit to visit his mum, so they let it
yeah,
run. And we've been notified that he'd seen his brother, who he hadn't seen for some time, the day before also, and he showed him this vest, and he had buttons on each shoulder and a button on his chest. And that was if the police should arrest him, he could just use his head to push one of the buttons or push the button on his chest and things would go off. This is his
yeah,
interpretation. So he ended up back in his property at Duran Ellum, and basically the police arrived, the SOG arrived. They, in the armored vehicle, went up and they triggered the warning alarms on his driveway. He had sensors in the trees, so he knew they were coming. And it's about 9 o'clock at night, freezing cold up there.
Yeah.
And he came out, he only had a sort of shirt on, showed him the vest, sort of disappeared back inside, came back a minute later, and the negotiations went on for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And he was in and out. It must have been freezing. He didn't ask about the time, probably asked how long I've been here, maybe 2 or 3 times. And I did a delivery of meals to all the out of cordons. I wasn't SOG now, but they knew that I could deliver the meals and stuff like that through my experience. And I could see him standing in the driveway and all that kind of stuff, talking through the negotiators. And in the end, I closed our guys down. I said, we'll go find some accommodation. We're not going to search a house for explosives at night. It just doesn't make sense. You know, dangerous, dark. You want to use daylight. So basically, we found a local motel, I think Mortlake, some distance away. About 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone. My phone goes. My senior sergeant says, "I hope you're awake. The place is just blowing up, and Sanders is dead." And I thought it was just typical SOG. You know, I'm sleeping and he's not. Wake me up.
Yeah.
And he says, "No, I'm serious. And 3 of us have been hurt. And so you'll need to get here, get the boys here, and take over." Because we all have to be interviewed by the homicide squad, death in police custody. So we get there and it's just, getting things sorted, block the Hamilton Highway completely. There's fragmentation all over the highway and things like that. And to cut a long story short, I suppose, during the negotiation period, one of the guys had his head outside the armoured vehicle, just talking to him, negotiating.
Yeah.
And there was just a loud explosion. If you're close, it was just one explosion. And his interpretation, he got a fright when this explosion went off and he hit his shoulder and bang, he went off.
Right.
Yeah. So he had detonating cord, which wrapped around his body. And detonating cords are high explosive for those people that don't know. Travels 8,400 meters per second. That's over nearly 8.5 kilometers per second. That's how fast his cord will travel.
Yeah.
So that basically cutting him in half. Upper torso from the lower torso was 7 meters separated. And basically the guy in the armored vehicle had overpressure damage from the blast.
Yeah.
And if you were some distance away, they said they heard something like 6 or 7 explosions going off. So basically he had 7 devices planted around the property, all interconnected to each other, and they all went off at the same time.
Right.
But distance away, you could hear the bang, 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 but close up, it just sounded like one large explosion. So his house was totally destroyed. His engineering shed had plasma cutters and stuff like that, totally destroyed. Mum's house was on the same property. Her house wasn't destroyed. The ceiling dropped from the overpressure, but fragmentation through it. And he had a device, basically a bomb, near the front door, one near the back door. He had 2 in the engineering shed, and he had one in a hidden shipping container. And we're there for the next 3 weeks, making the property safe.
Just a couple of things to unpack that, and I saw the photo of the damage it did. It's unbelievable. I saw a photo in your book, but just unpacking that, the consequences could have been devastating. Like 3 members injured. The person that created the bomb blowing himself up. But if people went in there the wrong way or didn't cordon off the area and go in there, it could be mass casualties.
Yeah, if the police had done a raid or something like that at night, once we're dealing with bombs, we're trying to come up with a plan that's to our advantage. One SOG member received shrapnel to his head, went through his ballistic helmet, and he has recovered from his injuries. And the other one, fortunately, they were behind a chimney of the house, the main house, a brick chimney. So the overpressure and the blast wave sort of went around it, but it collapsed it.
Yeah.
Fortunate they weren't killed. Lucky they weren't killed.
Now, to attend a scene like that, which clearly, I call him a nutter. It's not probably the technical term, but an intelligent nutter that can cause some damage and set bombs up like that. You'd be going through a scene like that. It could be booby-trapped. You wouldn't know what you're going to uncover there. How long did it take before you could clear that scene?
We were there for 3 weeks. And even arriving there, putting the cordons in place, blocking the Hamilton Highway, which is the main highway. I was
Yep.
getting a bit of grief. Will that be for a day? I said, no, it'll open when it opens. Simple as that. So it was 3 weeks it was closed for. Sort of the command structure, some of them were trying to put pressure on it. Doesn't work with me, the pressure. Don't care. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Take as long as it's going to take to protect my members and protect other people. So we had to start basically from the front door. He had explosives in milk churns and large LPG tanks.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about shrapnel, like nails and things like
Yeah.
that. He had welded railway iron onto the side of these churns,
Wow.
chunks of
Yeah.
railway iron, and it gouged the Hamilton Highway over 400 metres away. One of those chunks had gone right past the command post. Yeah, I've got a photo of it. I saw it when I was setting up everything, got this gouge in the highway, and I could see the indentations in the ploughed field. So I found the railway iron. They didn't know what was whizzing past that night. So we basically started at the front. His letterbox was actually looked like a bomb. It was a large aerial bomb. That was his letterbox. And it had a shotgun cartridge in the front of it. And basically all the neighbours were coming out. He said, he always used to say, if anybody touches his letterbox, that'd be the last thing they'll do. So, we had to take that as being a possible bomb. And he had a haystack in the front yard. We had to empty every bale of hay because rumours coming in. He had explosives hidden in the hay. And
What
it was
a
just...
painstaking task. How many of you were working on that?
We
From the
had
bomb side
at
of
least
things?
8 on site, and then we had the rest of Victoria to respond to too. So we had our limits were really stretched for Victoria. We had a team in the city. I sort of stayed there. Once I sort of started, my senior sergeant came back 3 days later.
Yep.
After being interviewed and all that kind of stuff. But it was just a long process, very slow. His body was in the driveway. He's separated by 7 meters, upper and lower.
Yeah.
That had to be covered on the first day. We had rumors that he was wearing a bra that had a number of detonators in it. People don't know what a detonator is. If you stand on a detonator, good chance you'll lose half a foot. That's what they're like. They look very small, but they're very dangerous. So I had to clean path there. I had to cover the body. So he hadn't been declared deceased by the pathologist till 2.5 days later.
Right.
When, again, I had to go back, uncover the body. They came in, took photos. They moved out, then had to roll those parts over, check the pockets and his clothing, make sure nothing was in them. They came in, took more photos and declared him deceased. Yeah.
What a painstaking task that would have been. And that would have been high alert the whole time. Like any step could have been your last one.
Watching where you put your feet. And that's why we stopped the other investigators coming on. They wanted to come on, but we just couldn't guarantee the safety. So we cleared a path down the driveway, which driveways would have been about 2.5, 250 meters long. It was a long driveway. But it was painstaking. And then you got a biological hazard, you're a bomb tech and or we call it knuckle drag or whatever. You've got all these things running through your mind. That's when your mind, you go into work mode, and health and well-being of the members. His house was made out of asbestos, so we had to have basically appropriate asbestos suits. We had to get swabbed every day for fibres. Again, breathing apparatus and working some days in boiling heat, other days in the rain. The guys were really good, really professional, the guys I worked with. Big worry, though, as a sergeant, giving a task and sending them in. You want to do it yourself because you don't want them getting hurt. I know it's just human nature, but you trust them. And we did 22 counter charges in the end for things that we found IEDs. We found the time device that made everything go off. And so busy period, very busy.
I could imagine, and I understand what you're saying too, like sending people in that you're putting them at risk, but that is the job. That's the way it plays out, isn't it? People have got
it is.
Got to get their experience, and I'm glad you stood up to the detectives. I know you. I know you've done a couple of things. I just referenced, when you're back in your SOG days when you had an operation on your knee and you were told directly by your boss not to get out of the car no matter what when you had to fill in for a raid, and you got out not once but you did it again, and so you disobeyed that. I'll tell you a funny story, and you probably won't laugh at me. You'll say what the bomb guys from New South Wales said about me. I was doing it was a high profile covert, high profile in the magnitude of the job. We had an informant that I'd been dealing with covertly for a very long time. And this informant was paranoid, and he was a bit of a tech that liked to make bombs and into his firearms and all that. And he handed me, we've gone to see the informant, and he's handed me what I'd describe as a pipe bomb. It was a fair-sized pipe bomb, probably 30 centimetres or more length, wires coming out of it, screwed at both ends, thick pipe. Handed it to me when I went to his place, and he's put it in my hands before I'm even thinking. I've got it in my hands. And he's gone, and I've said, mate, what's that? He's gone, it's a bomb. I set it up that if anyone tried to break in here, that would be the last thing they do, blah, blah, blah. But it's all right, mate, because I've diffused it. It's disconnected. I've got it in my hands. And covert, it was a years long operation. I couldn't blow it. And I know if I called the bomb squad guys, the whole place would be cordoned off and it would be no covert anymore. So I said to the bloke I was working with, Luke, if you're stupid, I'm stupid. How about we just carry this to the car, we'll drive it to an oval, and then we'll call the bomb squad. So we're walking out. I've got my head tilted away. I don't know how that was going to save me.
Oh, that's going to make a difference.
That make a big difference. It was in a city, like a Friday afternoon. It would have been shut down city type thing. I've put it in the boot of the car. Luke pressed the bonnet because I've watched Hollywood. I see every time the button's pressed, the bomb goes off. I'm looking away. We put it in the boot and we drove and parked the car in the middle of the oval, and I called the bomb squad. And basically relay what they were saying. You fucking what? They abused me for about 10 or 15 minutes, and every single thing they said was 100% right. And I said, I get it. I'm stupid. I promise I'll never do it again, but can you come and help me and get this bomb? And they came and took the bomb away, detonated it, and did what they should have done at the place. So that was my one experience with handling bombs. And I don't think I did very well on that. I think I might have
but sometimes you're put in a position that that's what you got to do,
I only told you that story because I've picked up enough in speaking to you and reading through the book. Sometimes things have just got to be done. And, and we did it. We got away with it. But they abused me, and then I got dragged in the boss's office the next day. He abused me. Everyone abused me, and I had nothing to come back with. The only thing after a length of time, I said, "Yeah, but look, I'm still here. Didn't blow up." But anyway, that was a funny side story. Overseas, you've done a lot of study overseas, and in the bomb technician side of things. Tell us some of the things and things that you did there.
Well, fortunately enough, I got a scholarship. When we talk about the bomb course and stuff like that, you become a director basically once you've done an overseas trip that's been sponsored.
Yeah.
So that's what I was lining up to do. So I went to basically the America first. I went to a conference over there in Sacramento for a week, visited the FBI and Washington and all that kind of stuff, spoke to all their bomb techs, look at the techniques that they're using, shown a lot of case histories and stuff like that, did a number of training days. From there, I went to South Africa in the same trip.
Yep.
I spent a month in South Africa. It was just after apartheid, and things were still pretty wild over there. You're sitting in a motel at night just listening to gunshots going off. It's just unbelievable. But worked with their bomb techs and, went out with their tactical guys one night. It was a secure location. And that night, one of the guys got shot on the way home, ambushed and shot. That's what it was like over there. I don't know if they had known that they would have sent me over there. And on the way back, I went to the UK, England, saw their bomb, went to Scotland Yard and did a bit of training with some of their bomb people.
Yeah.
And what you do is you're generating a lot of information that you can bring back to the next course as the director. I'd already been an assistant director. Now I was going to be a director. And we ran 2 courses that year. So I was director twice. So I was getting a lot of experience. I had a lot of knowledge, I suppose, by then. And you just convey that information on to everybody else. You just take it in. I've been fortunate that I was sponsored by the CSG, Community Security Group. It's a Jewish community group down in Melbourne.
Right.
They have a lot of functions and do searches before they have a big function. we would help them with those searches, but we'd train them to help us also. And they sponsored me to go to Israel for a conference over there, and I spent a couple of weeks over in Israel.
Yeah.
It was a suicide bombers conference, so you're learning all the time, and you bring that information back to Australia.
Yeah.
And it was all that was open to all. And then I went to Spain and trained with Europol, and that was open to all bomb techs in Australia. And I heard about it. I heard someone was going. I thought, no,
Yeah.
I think I should go and do that. And there was no hesitation of me going. Straight away, they said, you can go. And I did a week's training with Europol, which is actually we're not part of Europol, but
Yep.
I was a guest, and it was good to train with their bomb techs from all the various countries. It just shows our language. They speak 3 or 4 different languages, and I speak Australian.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I did a presentation on the Duran Ellum, at the conference, and the guy stands up and introduces me, and he apologises for me before he even starts speaking, how Australians speak too fast. And I think that's a great start. Thanks for that. So I had to do it through an interpreter on all the various languages. It was an interesting experience.
Oh, that would be.
We did. They set up a couple of scenarios, and at one stage, no one stood forward, and I put my hand up, and they're happy. And our skill level and what we have is very good. I was really impressed, not by myself, but when I came back, I thought, yeah, we're pretty good. Yeah.
Where we're at, it's not the type of thing you want to lag behind. And
no, definitely not. Yeah.
And sadly, I think in today's day and age, it's a skill set that'll probably be needed more and more.
It is like on average, we're probably doing 1.5 to 2 jobs a week. People don't hear about them. We're very much we get in there, do the job, and we're out and we're gone. And the media pick it up, and they're good basically with the information they give.
Out of the call-outs, how many are legitimate well, they're all legitimate call-outs because there's a concern there. But how many are actually turn out to be bombs?
I would say maybe 15%. Either bombs through. It could be misadventure, kids mucking around, making something and it's been left behind. They've been improvised something. It might not have an explosive compound involved, but it's made to look like a bomb. Not a bomb, but it looks like a bomb. So you've got to take that on board. Criminal activity, certainly they're still finding pipe bombs. As far as I know, it was on the news this week, actually, in Victoria. They found a number of pipe bombs, and it was on Channel 7 telecasts. A number of counter charges were done where they were rendered safe. What rendered safe basically means they were disarmed, made safe. So it happens quite regularly. And being on call, in my career, I had my own personal phone. I'd have my sergeant's phone, and then I'd have the senior sergeant's phone at times. So if I went to the pictures with Jan, I'd be sitting there in the picture theatre with 3 mobile phones. And you've probably done it yourself. You had to turn them over so the screen doesn't come on. But you're sitting there watching the movie, waiting for the glow, which phone's going to go off. So, it's a life and a half as you've experienced yourself. Yeah.
And don't you feel like the dickhead that's so important that he's got to keep the phone on wherever you are, and everyone just
what an idiot.
Who is this dickhead? No, I know the feeling. There's an image of you looking very lonely, walking down the street in your book in your bomb suit. Tell us what's going through your mind as you're walking towards it. Are you in communications with someone about what you're seeing and what you're doing?
Yeah, we have communications through the bomb suits and stuff like that. So we have comms, but it's a secure comms channel. And they say don't use a radio over a bomb, but we're basically our radios are right the way we do it. And I know exactly what that job was. It's a hot summer's day, walking down, and you're thinking of what you're required to do. We had the robot out that had done observations. I think that's in the picture. But it was a difficult location where it was. So it's going to have to be hands-on. And I know it's silly, but after so many years as a bomb tech, sometimes I can pretty well pick what we're going to deal with and what it actually is before I even see it.
Yeah.
And it was, I know that job was a geotag. So people, it was a container, and inside the container has a piece of paper, and it has a pen in it. And people have there's a website, you've got to find where these things are hidden throughout the city. And we've done a number of them. So we don't take them for granted.
Right.
But I think this will be a geotag or something like that. And have a look. Yeah. I might use a manual means of removing it, but every meter matters. I won't be pulling it out with my hands. I'll
Yep.
attach something to it and pull it out from a distance. So it's going through your mind. There's no time to think about fun or anything like that. You're focusing on what you're doing. And it's silly, I'm focusing that the media are filming this too. Now's not a good time to trip over my feet and land like a turtle on my back,
And
because
and
that's
like
the shot that.
like you're laughing, but I could only imagine how uncomfortable that suit would be, and 40 kilos worth, and
Yeah, 40 kilos worth, sweat's dripping down the back of
yeah,
your t-shirt and your uniform is just wringing wet. I
yeah,
normally carry a spare one and just get changed after a job because you drop it on the ground, it's just like a wet pile on the ground.
yeah,
So you lose a few kilos, probably just with fluid.
yeah.
It's very hot in those days.
What's
So, yep.
is there a job that you've got to that really scared you? Like you're thinking, okay, this is where all the training, everything needs to kick in. You have to be at your sharpest. That okay, this is a difficult one.
Probably, I think Duran Ellum more than anything. That was the
Yeah,
thing, probably more scared for other people. The boys would, to a particular zone area, clear it, and then they come back with a photo and say,
yeah,
this is what we found. And it was an IED, had an arming switch, had everything attached to it. And I said, oh, we have the offenders deceased. We're not looking for any other offenders. We don't need that evidence. Just don't touch it. Just
yeah,
destroy it where it is. It was probably that kind of operation that they're turning over. At the end, after 3 weeks, we had a pile of timber, we had a pile of metal, we had a pile of clothing. We're going through clothing and find sticks of power gel, like explosives
yeah.
in coats and pockets and things like that. It's not just rummaging through. Everything had to be checked.
The threat was
Yeah,
everywhere. Everywhere
yeah,
you
it's
looked, touched.
everywhere you looked. He parked his car in the in the garage, and he actually parked the front passenger wheel on one of the devices,
Yeah,
and like that blew the car onto its roof. So he had everything planned out. And when we rolled that car back over, we found another 20 detonators just laying on the ground that come out of the car. And like
yeah,
as I said, so you stand on a detonator, you will lose half a foot.
yeah.
Simple as that. So
With
yeah.
with the bomb suit, what sort of protection does that give you? Like
Uh,
I've seen guys put them on, and you say you pull your hands in. I'm looking, okay, that's
yeah.
covered, that's covered. They lose their feet, they lose their hands. Like what
It,
sort of protection is it that provide you?
heat shock and basically fragmentation when you look at it. The heat from the blast,
Yep,
the shock wave,
yep,
and basically fragmentation that comes with it. But when we said before, every meter matters. If
yeah,
I can be another meter back, the risk becomes less. But it depends on the size of the device. I think I've got photos of a guy in the Philippines that was wearing a bomb suit, and all it basically did is keep the body parts together,
right,
and
yeah,
it tore it to pieces basically when we come down to it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, do you have you've explained why you applied? Do you have an abundance of applicants for this type of work?
Yeah, we have quite a few that apply for it. Normally, you get about 25. Might advertise every 3 years. Our staff stay for some time.
Yep,
To become proficient, it takes you 2 or 3 years.
yeah.
We had some new bomb techs on the Derrinallum, and that was like 2 years of work for
They
that
just
3 weeks.
they
They
just
learn a lot,
cram
which is
that experience
yeah,
in
which
you.
is great. So we get a lot of applicants. Some old SOG mentality. I
Yeah,
hear reputations and stuff like that. Are they in for the right reason, wrong reason?
yep.
They do a big psych evaluation.
Like a
Uh, and,
psychometric testing and
yeah,
different
and
things.
basically spoken to.
Yep.
And we look at that very carefully. We have the group is getting bigger, the BRU, but you want to make sure you've got people that are going to work in with the family,
Yeah. Yeah.
with your family. You don't want someone that's going to upset everybody. You can't have a square peg in a round hole or something like that.
Well,
So
like
personalities are really important.
there's always workplace conflict in any group that operates in pressure situations. But I would imagine that's the last thing you need in a bomb response
Yeah.
group: the internal dramas and different things.
Yeah. Well, we do 3 days of assessments.
Yep.
It goes for 3 days, and we'd like to do it into overtime period, but that's a problem with budget. It wouldn't be allowed when people get tired. When I did the Frankston shooting, two
Yeah.
bomb jobs and one shooting in one night. That's what it's
Yeah.
all about. But at the end of those 3 days, whoever's remaining there, okay, I'd ask them, right, who you would like to work with from 1 to 20th. I'll put
Okay.
people in a list.
Yeah.
And at times, we've been happy with someone and we suddenly look at all these lists and their names down the bottom
So,
and they're playing the game and they've been doing things that we haven't seen. And
yeah.
that's where I might get the psych to do another evaluation to find out what's going on here because other people aren't happy with this person, you
Yeah,
know?
that's it. That's interesting, isn't it? Like they can put on the facade in that they know what you guys are looking for or assume, but they get
Yeah.
caught out when the other members identify them. Because I would imagine, you said with overtime and you can't put them through that. It's you want to see how they react when they're tired and under pressure. Because
Yeah.
I know in policing sometimes you go in 24 hours straight or longer. And it amazes me, some people that are good operators literally fall apart where they go past bedtime and they can't function. And
Yeah.
you need,
Oh, we had one guy, he couldn't function without food. Like I can go without food for 24 hours, I don't care. But yeah, he's got to be fed every hour or so.
John, you've just hit on a bugbear of mine with doing an early morning raid or an operation or something that is based on time and someone, I need my coffee. And fuck your coffee.
Yeah.
Why are we waiting? Oh, I just had to get a coffee or something like that. But
Uh,
it's interesting, an interesting field. And I would imagine what sort of satisfaction do you get from it? Like going in and doing the job, is there a satisfaction you get, or what's?
yeah, I think it's a reward at the end if everything goes well.
Yeah,
The equipment all works. We have so much electronic equipment now, and
yeah,
you sometimes can get interference and things like that. Very much with bomb side of it, you do have to have a plan A, B, and C.
yeah,
And if A doesn't work, then you go to B. But you do get a satisfaction if you've done a good job, everything's worked, everybody's gone on well, and yeah, no issues.
yeah,
Equipment was always a bit of an issue. There's always some kind of technical problem and we improvise. We become quite good at it, actually.
yeah. Is there a lot of liaison with all the other police forces in the country and military? You all keep in contact, so you're all on the
Yeah,
same page?
yeah. If there's military ordnance,
Yeah,
we basically get the army to deal with it. So
yeah,
if we come across something, and there was a job last week, I know the boys, the army turned up. They had military ordnance, and then they saw
yeah,
a couple of pipe bombs. So they said that's for the bomb response unit to deal
yeah.
with. So it goes from there. So we have a lot of liaison. We work well together. Always have good. Yeah, it's always good. You always want that expertise. I've done jobs where grenades have been involved,
Yeah,
and that's military ordnance. We might be searching them for a warrant, but I'll
yeah,
have the military there with us to say, hey, this is the way you should handle it. And I'm quite happy to listen to that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Your downtime, like pressure, the pressure. What 34 years in the police, pretty
Yeah.
much 32 of those years in the SOG or bomb
Yep.
response unit.
Yep.
What do you do for your downtime? And this is a loaded question because I know what you do, and I think people are just going to go, "What the hell?"
Well, basic things. I like exercising, do a lot of
Yeah,
cycling, used to do a lot of running before I had two new knees put in. But then I like other challenges. I've climbed quite a few mountains with
yeah,
Greg Linsell and a guy called Paul Carr, who were both in the SOG.
yep,
I became good friends with them because I had this passion that they basically took me along and taught me how to climb. And then we got into mountaineering. And I like a challenge,
yeah.
basically. And Greg Linsell keeps on coming up with these stupid ideas. I'll blame it on him, but we're as bad as each other.
So with like you climbed Everest. Now people, yeah, it's a true crime podcast, but I'm just fascinated by the mentality and the drive to achieve that. Like it's very few people do it, and there's a high mortality rate of people that try. Talk us through that experience of what drove you. And before I do, I should just clarify. It's just another aspect of your policing we haven't talked about. A lot of rappelling. You were very efficient in that, and we're training a lot of people in rappelling, like down the side
Yeah,
of buildings and.
with Paul and Greg, were very much into climbing and all that. When I did
Yep,
the SOG course that week at Mount Everest, I just loved it.
yep,
Best week of the course. Couldn't get the smile off my face. Then when I got into the unit, into the group, we'd go away for weekends up to Mount Everest, even with our families and things like that, do rock climbing. And then we started improvising new ways to do urban climbing, climb buildings. I then I became a senior instructor in the end for rock and urban climbing, abseiling, fast roping, which is from a helicopter.
Yep.
You drop a rope out, it's 30 meters long, about 40 millimeters into diameter, and you just slide down it. And we came up with that procedure and sort of went from there. And then basically, it is sort of Everest a bit SOG motivated. Is that Paul Carr was training for it. I won't go into the full story, but on the 14th of May, he suffered a coronary occlusion on a mountain called Chao Yu, which is basically in China, Tibet.
Yep.
And so he had a massive heart attack. And as a result of that, that was in the planning to do Everest. Greg and I were ready to do Everest with this at that particular period.
Yep.
So we didn't go to Chao Yu. He went with 3 other people. And as a result of that, probably as a police officer, the worst thing you ever have to do, as you know, would be a death notification, knock on someone's door. And I've been in the police force a number of years now and known Paul for probably 14, 15 years. We've been away with his first wife and kids. We used to go abseiling, and we're really good friends with his second wife. And basically, both ex and current wife were good because they had children involved. It was quite a happy family. So my first death message was knocking on Julie, his current wife's door, and informing her with another guy of his death, and then having to go to his ex-wife and go and tell her, and then go to the school with Julie, with Liz, to tell the kids that what had happened. And we had to do this because Paul was in charge of the special operations group at the time.
Yeah.
And we had to get it out there before the media got it out, before it was known. And so, yeah, terrible period. And he was sort of planning to raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And he was sharing a tent with a guy called Nick Farr, who was a police officer.
Yep.
So once Greg and I went over to Nepal, we helped the logistics of bringing Paul back and the other climbers. So basically, a guy called K.C. Madan, he did the highest helicopter rescue on Everest a number of years into thin air. John Cracker, if you ever read that book. Anyway, he flew with permission. China gave permission for Nepalese helicopter to go in, brought the climbers out. The next day they went back. Paul's body being brought down to a reasonable altitude, and his body was brought back to Nepal. We arrived the same day, and we did a week of logistics of everything having to be done to bring back to his family. And so we let it sit for about a year, but it was like a bit of an SOG thing. SOG sort of started it. Greg and I wanted to climb Everest, don't get us wrong there. So we continued the journey. And basically a documentary was done, Unfinished Business, by a person called Jennifer Adams, who came with us, spent a time, and it was a great experience to go and do it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We're doing it for a number of reasons: for ourselves, for Paul's family, for the group, definitely. We just wanted it finished, and for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. We raised, I think, something like nearly $200,000 in the end. Yeah.
Amazing the what drives you, but it's not something that you wake up and say, this is what I've got to do. The training, the preparation, the risk assessment, the whole thing, the timing, costs, everything come into play. When it finally, and like I'm just fascinated, I'm just curious about it, where you hear people, we're 400 metres from the top, but we had to turn around and couldn't make that 400 metres, that type of thing. It's life on the edge because you're in that that zone that they call the death zone. What did it feel like when you actually stood on the top of Everest?
Just relief that I'd made it, but I haven't really made it till you actually get back down. But I always want to look at the curvature of the Earth. I always heard that you could actually see the curvature of the Earth standing up there, and you can.
Yeah.
And it was blowing a gale, and I've got footage in the documentary that Jen made that shows the camera icing up. That's how cold it is, but surreal to be looking at it. And I had my Sherpa with me, Pema, and we just shared that moment together. Nepalese people just love them. They're just fantastic, hardworking, and what they have, they just appreciate. Just beautiful people. But to share that moment, and then for Greg, Nick, and myself to be on the mountain at the same time as a team. Was fantastic. Although we didn't get a photo of all 3 of us together because someone had to take the photo, but it was good. And Greg had been given a book by Paul's daughters to lead up on the top of Everest, a little book, with poems and stuff like that. And he'd been given also a ribbon that Paul's parents had given to us to leave on the top of the mountain, which we did.
Yeah.
So, and we took photos of that and all that kind of stuff. And the hard part now was getting down. Most people die going down. They do coming up
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way.
I've heard
Yeah.
that. It's,
Yeah, it's like walking up a flight of stairs. If you're walking up a flight of stairs and you fall, you can put your hands out and just
yeah.
rest. But if you're walking down a flight of stairs, you're not connected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
not connected to the safety line. Yeah.
when you're downtime between defusing bombs, arresting high-risk offenders, climbing Mount Everest, you also paddle a kayak across the Bass Strait.
Yeah,
So,
it was 2014. Greg and I were saying, we need to do something. I
yeah,
blame him.
I agree. You guys have got to liven up a little bit. Do something
Yeah,
with your lives.
yeah. And I was telling about this girl down the road that actually paddled from Tasmania to Victoria with her brother and another group of people. And I
Yeah.
said, I'd done a bit of kayaking called Mark Webber Challenges. I know Mark Webber, the
Yeah.
F1 guy,
Yep.
and he did a couple of charity things. And I was fortunate enough to be involved in those and did a bit of kayaking.
Yep.
And so I thought, we can do this. We only need 4 months training. We'll be fine. And so first thing is going to find a kayak and all that kind of stuff, and it sort of went from there. So Greg, myself, and three other police officers, Greg, friends of Greg, and we did that. We had a few personalities on that trip, but we didn't kill each other or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, and I'll tell the story. About a month beforehand, I wanted to do the first leg, just by myself. As a copper, prepared and all that. I had all the water, all the fuel, all the food, as if I was going to go to Tassie. So I left from a place called Port Welshpool to Refuge Cove, which is Wilson's Prom.
Yep.
So still the mainland, 42 Ks, did that. And I was coming back the next day. Told Jan I'd be away for a couple of days. Anyway, coming back when I was leaving, I thought, oh, geez, the waves are up a bit today in Bass Strait. Anyway, soon enough, about 20 Ks into it, I got hit by a rogue wave and ended up I had to detach from the kayak. I had a leg rope on and detach and ended up on a beach, on a bit of a sandy beach. And I was stuck there for 5 days. So I managed to get a message to Jan that I might be a few days late. But so that was my learning experience. And
life full of adventure. There's another aspect of your life, and it was in the forward of your book, and that's running a boot camp, for want of a better word, with elite athletes. And Craig Bellamy did the forward in your book. Tell us about, because that's with the Melbourne Storm. Like, this is where I'm Sydney based. We all understand Melbourne Storm, and they have a reputation of being, the go-to club in the way to the culture that they create in the club. And you were heavily involved in the sort of pre-season training camps and that. What was that all about?
Yeah, we've been doing Melbourne Storm for about 23 years. Myself, Craig Walsh, Andrew McTrusty, and another person who's still working, so I won't mention his name. But originally we did the Western Bulldogs.
Yep.
It's an AFL side under Christine Nixon, our Chief Commissioner. They were basically, if we could help the Western Bulldogs do a boot camp, the Bulldogs would help the local community, youth troubles and things like that.
Yeah.
We met a guy called Andrew McTrusty. He said, oh, geez, that was a really good program. We should do it privately. We started a company called IDQ, which referred to as I Don't Quit. Okay. And we started with a number of AFL sides and the Melbourne Storm in the very early days. And it's just great. They're just professional. The players are there to basically, it's like a rite of passage now to do this camp. We're not there to make them fit. We're probably there to make them discover about themselves, whether they're an individual, where they can act as a team, who can make the decisions. We look at fatigue and things like that. You get tired playing a game, so we can sort of replicate that a bit with the camp that we give. It is physical.
Yep.
We're not there to break anybody, and the idea is those players that are coming to the club get the opportunity to discover each other, and they can basically form a more bonding friendship. If they've got issues, they've got someone to discuss those issues with now. So a lot of this stuff's done very private. We don't talk about it, but it's done professionally. And Melbourne Storm, Craig and Frank, they're just so professional, and I find it great to work with professional athletes. I feel privileged to be able to do that.
There's in the forward. I'll read it out because it's pretty impressive coming from Craig Bellamy. But this is how he talks about those camps that you go on. or that you run. For me, those camps are about more than just building a successful team. They're about helping the players grow as individuals, about preparing them for the challenges they'd face, both on and off the field. And for that, I'll always be grateful to JT and Mr. Walsh. Their contributions went far beyond what I would have imagined, and their legacy will always be part of what makes Melbourne Storm special. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. I feel flattered. I just,
Yeah.
don't sort of. I feel embarrassed getting that kind of praise, but you see how well they've done and the
Yeah.
structure they have there just shows that they've got a great culture. And we've dealt with a lot of sides over the years, and we've seen various cultures and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But they're just impressive. Melbourne Storm.
Well,
They look after their players too.
yeah,
Which is
that's
fantastic.
abundantly clear. You hear that that's the narrative that comes out of the club. But it makes me reflect. Like, you seem so calm and zen-like and peaceful, and just you got your shit together basically. And it's interesting that people have put themselves you've been testing yourself basically your whole career, and even on your downtime testing yourself. And it seems to you've got a good outlook on life, on what's important.
Yep, very much live life every day like it's your last.
Yeah.
Life goes too fast. There's so many exciting things and challenges out there. I'm probably slowing down a little bit, but I'm really into the cycling now. With Greg, he's a bad influence again. So
I'm
yeah,
laughing at you live like your life could be the last day. Well, the way you have lived your life, every day could have been the last day.
yeah.
Reflections on policing. We were having a chat the other day, and it saddens both of us that police forces across the country are struggling to get people to sign up, and two old fools like us look back and go, "Geez, they paid us for that time in the cops." What would you say to people that might have an inkling to join the police, or in two minds whether to join the police? What opportunities are there for people?
Look, I was there for 34 years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found my niche. I found my spot. And there's lots of areas in the police force that you can go to. You're going to have to do your probationary period, no matter what. And then you go, the mounted branch, you go traffic or whatever you want to do. Become a detective, and you're the one that's got to make the most. No one's going to give it to you. But it's a great career, and it has rules and regulations, and police are needed when you look at what's happening to society these days, and I think the public, when they mention the word cop, I find that sometimes a bit derogative and stuff like that. That's the person you're going to call when you need help, and I don't think they sometimes get the support or the respect. They're not all angels. I'm not saying they are,
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot of respect that's been lost. It's not a great way that society's heading. But you'll meet some great friends and be able to share some experiences together. And I'd certainly go as the police force. I tried as an 18-year-old and I was too short, so I tried 10 years later and I got in. And then 1 year later, 18 months later, I'm in the special operations group where I spent something like 32 years. So yeah.
No, I like stories like that, John, because I agree with policing. It just opens up doors and experiences that you don't get in normal life. And it comes at a price. You pay a price in different ways. But I certainly think the good outweighs the negatives of it. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah,
Would I become a police officer? Yeah, I'd come again. I've done my time. I have no regrets leaving. I
yeah,
haven't missed it at all because I feel like, geez, I hit an exciting period when everything was happening. I
yeah.
went through a number of generations, from when we got that pages to mobile phones now and technology with robots and stuff like that. I've been fortunate,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. Yeah.
Good period of time to be in the cops. Well, I might wrap it up here. Before I do, I'd just like to thank not just you, but also Jan and the rest of your family for lending you to the Victorian Police for so long. But for the services you've done to the community, and this is, I hope people listening to that, when they see the news clips of the guys in their black overalls and balaclavas on, just doing what they do, and then taking off. They're humans behind it, and you get a sense of someone that's lived at that sharp edge for a long time. And I know in speaking to you, say it's part of a team, and it's not just about you. It's everyone that you work with. But full credit to doing what you do. Or
Thanks very
did?
much, Gary. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's great to talk to a like person too. So,
Yeah.
having
Well,
had your career, yeah,
well, good stuff. Enjoyed the chat, and we'll speak soon.
no worries. Bye.